Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. For the program this evening, Brave Families, Creating and Keeping Long-Lasting Loving Relationships. I am delighted to be joined by the lead author, Jean Voistart. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Also to the other authors, Julie Schindler. Julie, welcome.
Hello.
And Elizabeth Kipp. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi there. So glad to be here.
Thank you for joining me. And yes, folks, I'm also one of the authors of the book. But I'm going to start with you, Jean. Whereas I normally read my guests' bios, all I'm saying here is, because I've got three of you, please, Jean, let's start with you. Share a little about you and why you chose to do this.
Well, the reason I chose to do this is because someone suggested it, and I was going for a walk in contemplation with God or Source or whatever you want to call that, and asking, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? I don't know. And this feather just fell down right in front of my path and landed by my foot, which is a symbol for the Brave Healer Productions company that publishes the book. So I said, yeah, I'm all in, But generally who I am, I'm a psychotherapist. I've been working with grief, trauma, and chronic pain for over 50 years. I'm passionate about families, having two family members ending their lives by suicide, multiple different family journeys. And I just truly care about families and finding loving relationships. So yeah, I was all in.
Bless you, thank you. And just to say hi to Sue and Sandy, who have joined us live. Great to have you with us.
Hi.
Elizabeth, share a little about you and why you chose to join the book.
Thank you. Like Jean, my background is in chronic pain management. I suffered with chronic pain for 40 years. I work in stress management. Also, three of my family members committed suicide. It was interesting. The possibility of offering a chapter for this book came in. And I knew I had a story, but I didn't know exactly which story it was going to be. And I sat down to the computer to start typing, and the story just came out. It was really interesting. So the story kind of picked the book. It was great. So I also work with people in recovering from addiction. And, it's all about relationship. So this book really, really, really called to me.
Bless you. Thank you. Julie, the same question to you. A little about you and why you chose to participate.
Yeah, I chose to participate in Brave Families because I think families are always looking for ways to connect. And sometimes you just don't know where to start. And a 60-second hug is that message that when you go to a wedding and they ask you, how do you, what's your best advice you can give the bride and groom? It always is the 60-second hug. And it became a part of my own healing journey when a box fell on my head and crushed my cervical spine. Living in chronic pain, hugs started to hurt. And we wanted to change the narrative of that. And when the dynamic of families change, where families go from being a family to being caregivers, there are huge gaps that can happen and disconnection. So when this book came about, it truly was, my heart kind of broke open. Not only do we learn how to love and hug ourselves, but giving that simple connection of intentional connection, where you get to just lean in and embrace and connect. That's where the healing begins. So I brought our family's little gift that we've had in our world. I'm a mom of two. I'm a wife of 29 years. And this injury completely changed our forward. not only for mine, but everyone else. And we found this simple, easy little way that we can connect with each other through that. So I wanted to bring that to this book. I also create platforms for children of learning how to color their emotions, because color is a really great place to start when you are looking for different ways to connect.
Bless you. Thank you. I think the thing here is everything's about the creativity of it, of coming at things from different directions and being open to new ways of living almost, and allowing your creativity and your imagination and thinking outside the box to open up to a more fulfilled family life. And that was the sense I got from each of your chapters. So, Jean, I know within all of the chapters, people offer you call it a tool. For me, I like to think of it as a suggestion. This is something that's worked for me. Here's a suggestion of what could work for you. Try it within your own family. So you've very much worked with creativity, don't you?
Yes, I do. But can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Sara Jane, you have the most incredible story of how you decided to join the book. And I would love for you to share, because when I asked you, well, I'm going to ask everybody that's here to join the book. When I asked you, I thought it was fascinating how you decided to join the book. You just really opened yourself up to spirit and being led to that decision. Can you share that?
When you first asked me, I had no idea what I could write.
No.
I really didn't. And sort of after you initially asked me, a thought came to me. But I really didn't know whether I was going to be able to do anything with that in the timeline. But talking to my sisters, it was very much a matter of, okay, we will do this anyway. And the thought that came was talking to Mum and asking her about her. How many of us see our parents as a human being? They're our parents, sort of, and everything that goes with that family story and the things that have happened to each of us. And my younger sister and myself sat with my mother. I mean, I haven't had a chance to transcribe that yet. Goodness knows how many words that is. I should think that's quite substantial, because we've probably got about 2 or 3 hours worth of recording. I backed out, actually. I said to Jean, I don't know whether I can do this, but come back to me if somebody drops out. And Jean came back to me, and it was just like, okay, I got this out. It's a dowsing pendulum for anybody that, and it was like, and the universe was saying, yes, you're doing it. So like you with the feather, it was me with the dowsing pendulum. And I then went and talked to Mum. I asked her permission, and I asked her about my story. I've opened my story, but I also wanted to, that was her section. We'd previously talked to her about Grandma, her mother. And so it's the 3 generations. Because yes, there's different aspects, because I haven't gone into my story again, but getting my mother to share it and hearing it from her perspective. And so I haven't read many of them, but I get there's a similar. I remember reading yours, Elizabeth, and there are aspects within yours that I totally resonate with. But that makes sense when you think of the stoicism of women that had to go through the Second World War.
Yes.
Without their husbands, etc. So yes. It's, and it's all of us, isn't it? It's being able to take ourselves out of that learned behaviors from previous generations.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sense I got with this. But I love the fact that we all come at it differently.
Well, yes, and it's just so beautiful what you did, inviting your mother to share her side of what you went through, what you thought your childhood was like, and what you felt, and she's sharing her journey. And then you see, well, oh gosh, that's so connected to what she went through as a child and adult. That's why this happened, you know, and building those bridges to loving relationships is amazing. So, and I think all of you did that, you know, it's amazing.
There's creativity in all of it. So let's come back to you, Jane.
Okay.
So, yes, because you do come from creativity. And I think when we can tap into that within ourselves, it can support us. I mean, Julie, your 60-second hug, you know, Elizabeth, the way you help yourself, all of it is really important. We can share from our experience. And it's what has supported us that can hopefully support others. So Jean, share a little bit more, please.
Oh, well, my tool is a memory aid. And I talk about, actually, I share a number of different stories, because I also wrote the introduction and afterward with many different story examples. But one of them that ties in with the tool was with my husband, who's experiencing some memory challenges or focusing attention challenges, and just kind of getting off track, and how we're adjusting to aging and how we're working together with that. And it's a very sweet story about working with him and stopping and using the memory aid. It's letters spelled out, and each one represents a moment where I can stop. And in the story, I'm stopping and focusing on the letter D for divine connection, and I'm focusing on the letter L for love. I'm focusing on different parts of that and bringing that moment where I can shift gears. So I stop, like he's getting upset. How come? I said, it's time for bed. We need to stop now and get to bed. And he said, I'm not done yet. And I said, honey, you've been sitting at that computer and it's nearing midnight or whatever it was. It's time to go to bed. Well, I'm going to bed. And so I stopped and I remembered the creativity letter in the word, in the acronym. And I stopped and said, all right, you can stay up if you'd like, but may I have this dance? And it just shifted gears like that. And he said, it caught him off guard. Oh, okay. And I said, thank you, sir. And I hold up my hand. He said, thank you, my lady. And we danced around and we danced. And I said, shall I go off to our chambers now? You know, and I was imagining with my creative imagination, you know, wearing the white puffy wigs and all dressed up and dancing and everything and saying, oh, okay, thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lady. And we went off to the bedroom and everything was fine, you know. And sometimes it's that creative play, you know, just being playful. And we can shift from a tough moment where he was getting angry and saying, how come you do everything right and I can't do anything and I'm having so much trouble? And that just completely dissolved into play, you know. Instead of trying to fix it, I embraced the moment and just played with it.
Bless you. Elizabeth, your thoughts?
I love that so much. It's just a way, what's another perspective I can look at this thing from? And how can I do it lovingly? So, you know, if the mission is, I have a friend of mine who's also a teacher, who says, live life as lovingly and joyfully as possible. And we brought that in as a way to, he's an ancestral clearing practitioner also, and I do that work. And he was helping us, teaching us the process, but bringing in that vibe of, do it as lovingly and joyfully as possible. And that ancestral clearing work can get deep and dark, but we keep a certain vibration of lovingly and joyfully as possible, and it makes the work actually possible for everyone, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, obviously got a couple. Susan says, how glorious it is when people are willing to share their vulnerabilities and in doing so help all of us face our own and heal. So thank you, Susan. And Sandy says it's a very sweet story talking about yours, Jean. Julie, your 60-second hug, sort of, I don't know whether you want to share just a little bit about that or something else, something different. And so people are encouraged to go and get the book and learn about it.
Well, the chapter really shares a deeply personal story of my family, but it also gives you this moment that an understanding that each of our family members are different. So if you think of a rainbow, we bring color into it. We have all these different aspects and spectrums of the rainbow. Each family member has a different color, and their mood or color that day can completely change the course. It could be sunny some days and gloomy other days. When you understand connection and you're looking for different ways to connect, the 60-second hug, it's not even necessarily about the 60 seconds. We know in that 60-second time frame, we can start to regulate the nervous system when we're being held in such a beautiful embrace. Healing begins to happen, but it comes more to the intention because not everyone is a hugger. So this does adapt to all aspects of our families and our relationships of how we can connect. It might just be listening, sitting next to that non-hugger, giving them their personal space and holding their boundaries with them, but giving them that listening ear, a hand on the heart as you're talking to someone or sending someone that intentional in energy. It's that beautiful transference of the two of them. But I love how this book brings you, first, Jean did such a great job to tell you the 10, I think there was like 10 different aspects of the books of how you are going to be able to connect. And Sarah's chapter shares how you gets those conversations going. Elizabeth gives you that courageous conversation where you've learned the story. How do we embrace it a little bit more and have this conversation? And then you get to come into the 60-second hug is how do we heal it? How do we have that conversation and how do we heal from it? And that can happen in that embrace. And Jean shared about creativity is that we are changing the narrative. We're changing the colors. We're changing the story of any moment, whether you're bringing yourself back into that love joy, like Elizabeth just talked about, or dancing with your husband and your family. It's all connection. It's all embrace. It's all creativity. And it brings us into the space where healing happens in those intentional moments that we are creating. And I think that's what this book does, but that's also what the 60-second hug is to have you just embrace, lean in, heal, and just connect.
And connection is the word, isn't it? Because within our own family, I know there's been disconnect. The traumas of my own early childhood making me feel I did not belong in the family. Yet it's my birth family, but I didn't belong. And my youngest sister has said because she gets to spend probably more time with mum than any of us, but it's just like, she said, it's really helped mum.
Wow.
She's being seen as a person. And that's what makes the difference. And so thank you, Jean.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's really important, because the family just, I think there are some families that have an awful lot of disconnect. And as much as we do see each other, there's still a lot of disconnect. But that's families for you. I don't have children, but I have 2 sisters. They have 5 kids between them. And between them, I've got 9 great nieces and nephews. So it's not a little family.
Yeah.
from 2 people that didn't have any brothers and sisters. But that's life. And if our stories of aspects of disconnect and then helping to create that connection, whether it's with the older generations or whether it's making sure it's down the future generations. And Elizabeth, you talked about ancestral healing. It's all important. Sort of the different things that sort of both Jean and Julie have had go on in their lives that changed their lives. So I think, yes, yourself.
It's amazing.
And myself, from early childhood, whereas obviously from the other 2, it was just like things happened in lives that. So I think that's the wonderful part about it.
Mm-hmm.
Jean, you talked about the fact that there's an aspect that you really would like to talk about before we started. So what was that you'd really like to share?
Oh, well, so much. First, I just want to acknowledge Sue and Sandy, who are here. I don't know if anyone else joined, but they are part of Brave Families as well. And just all the 25 authors, co-authors joining together with so many rich, different, diverse stories about, as you said, Sarah Jane, this journey of family, which covers, we're talking about LGBTQIA plus families who have disabilities, families who have experienced suicidal loss, families, military families that are chosen families that are adopted families, all kinds of divorced, just single, couples with no children, childless families, all different kinds of families, grandparents who are raising their grandchildren because the parents are deceased, all different kinds of families. And so we redefine it and embrace it and bring that all together. And we have this incredible resource directory at the back, trying all these different categories of help for families of international organizations to help support families, because we care, we really care. So we've created this caring community that's free for families that are going through things and really need a safe space. This is a place where we come and share, and then they can talk and share. We turn off the camera in a safe space so that they can share and not feel, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about this on the recording, So we have the safe space and support. And so just wanted to put that out there, that's available. Yeah.
Bless you. Thank you. Do you know what? Have any of you got a question that you would like to ask? Julie, you look like you're going to say something.
I feel like this book is so interactive. And I think that's what's great about it, is that not only do you have the experiences and the stories that are being shared from all of the different aspects of all relationships and families, but you also have the tools. So you get to go into the feeling of what's happening in that story. And then you get the tools, the actions that you can take and bring into your life. And you don't necessarily always get that in a book. So you are going on this adventure, And then you're learning the tools of how you can adapt it to your life. And then you have the resource guide. If that wasn't enough, you have the resource guide of all the different places you can go. And if you're still feeling like I don't want to do this alone, you have the community that's free that you get to come and get wrapped in a hug. And hugs are healing that's universally guided. So when you step into our hug within the Brave Families, that's just what you are receiving. You're receiving community and connection. And there's so many partner, if you think about the different chapters. And I love Elizabeth's chapter about having that courageous conversations and that connection. And that has bridges to other chapters in there. And at the end of all of them, you can give yourself a hug. So there's just so many different things that you can do with the book. And I'm so inspired by each of the chapters, inspired by the tools that you can use right now, and inspired by the resources and what's to come. So this is something that's building a foundation that's going to last for all of the authors that are included in it.
Well, something that I'd like to say, thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. Something that I'd like to say is just to clarify that, sometimes family situations are not all hugs and love and fun and everything. So for those who are out there and maybe there's abuse in their family, they're in a dangerous situation, or as a child, they were abused. And so when we're saying long-lasting, loving relationships, maybe this is a person who's in prison right now, abused you, or somebody that you don't want to have a relationship with. And the book acknowledges that. The book acknowledges all different situations. But I think it'd be great if we talk about it. We're here not to talk about the book. We're here to talk about how to help getting out of a situation that's unhealthy, and creating love in your life. And we've all journeyed that. I think everybody here has had some kind of trauma or challenge in their lives, everyone right here. And so it's good if we're vulnerable right now and sharing, what happens when you're in a situation and it's not a loving situation. How did each of you navigate that? And how did you find long-lasting love? And that long-lasting love can be with yourself, and most often is. So how do you find that when it's happening? It's not about, oh, okay, I'm going to find love with this person that's hurting me. So what do you all have to say about that?
Who'd like to start?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. First, I'd like to say that I love this book because of the diversity. And if you look at ecosystems in the world, the healthiest ecosystems are the ones with the highest diversity. So this book is a reflection of a healthy ecosystem within the human culture. And I love that. I'm thinking of a very specific thing that happened to me that I experienced when I was 15. And I was traumatized, and the person that I really needed to come help me didn't have the capacity to come help me. So I didn't get help. But what saved me was my connection to Source, to the Creator. And even though the humans around me weren't capable of, they just didn't have the capacity to help. I was left on my own. I was left on my own to deal with it, with the fallout from that. I had this connection to Source, and I would say my whole life, if I looked over my whole life and all the things that happened, the evidence is, I have a science background in case you didn't notice, the evidence is that I've been supported all along. And so my relationship with myself begins with this relationship, my understanding, this alignment with source. And really, as long as I've got that sorted out, everything else is what it is. I mean, it's like a point, it's like a perspective that I come to the world with. So that's what I'd say about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Julie.
I think I was brought back to Sara and I had spoken before the program about living inside the box. And many of us we don't fit into a box. We are so unique in our stories and what we have been through. And it's through the traumas and tribulations that have brought us the strength, that have created the pathways that we're able to help one another and help and bring our resources that we've learned by going through the trenches, by being meeting that inner child who has so much trauma held on to those who have abused them or used them or left them in their lives, which our body keeps score. So that's why we can't fit in a box. And that's understanding the belief systems that we might bring through. What I was brought back to was the self-forgiveness has to happen first. Before you can love another, you have to love yourself. Before you can hug another, you have to learn how to hug yourself. And the same thing goes with forgiveness. Before you can truly forgive another, it's not really about them when you're in healing. You have to heal you first. And it's forgiving yourself for holding on to the time that you've held on to the shame or blame or hurt or trauma of it. And there's this beautiful release. I feel like that box kind of opens up and that you have the ability to know that you don't have to live inside the hurt and the pain. You have these tools that are gifted to you, and you have this community that you can start leaning into that allows you to live color outside the lines and live outside of the box. But it truly starts with hugging yourself first, I believe, and forgiving, allowing that self-forgiveness to come through. And that's where the beauty of forgiveness ripples out with or without you having to reconnect with those people who have hurt you. And that's where that long lasting relationship with yourself, your healing, it heals everyone around you forward and backwards.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So it's got to be about self-love. There is a quote, and when I first read this, it spoke to me so loudly. It's Alice Little. As a traumatized child, we were desperately waiting for the adult that would come and save us. What we didn't understand was that it would be ourselves as an adult. And that said it all to me.
Yes, so true.
And it is, once I read that, knowing the work I was already doing, it was just like, that's exactly what it is. Me connecting with my younger self. With my younger self feeling listened to, heard, cared about, loved. She's been able to heal, which is enabling me to heal. But it has to start with the younger self and feeling to and heard, which is why I think the talking to mum and encouraging her to share is helping her to feel listened to and heard. Now, I've got some comments from Susan and Sandy here. And Susan says, I'm wondering how, and she's talking to Jean or Elizabeth here, faced a loss due to suicide of a loved one. How did they move past that loss? Only if there is time, she's put.
Yeah. Well, I'll share, but first I just want to acknowledge what you just said, Sarah Jane, and all of Elizabeth and Julian. All of you kind of, oops, I'm echoing. Am I okay now?
Carry on.
All right. So all of you kind of touched on that self-responsibility. And Elizabeth, you brought in with that leaning on God or source, and but taking that responsibility for ourselves instead of pointing out here. And I think that ties in with me experiencing suicide loss. But we can't, is that moment where we can't just go through life pointing this way and saying, well, that person's bad, I'm going to move on. We can't keep doing that. We have to find out, why is that resonating like a tuning fork in me? I think I see a pattern here. I can't be around these kinds of people or these kinds of situations. Why not? What if I just fix that, resonating force within me, and I learn how to be with that and how to receive love no matter what's going on. But so with the suicide loss, it was very interesting because the first one was my grandfather, my mother's father, and it was kept a secret. And every time, and it happened before the three of us, my two sibling sisters and I, were born. And it's a connection with you, Sarah Jane, with the World War. And so he ended his life with a .22 caliber pistol in a public place. So I did not know that until I was an adult in college. My father told me shortly before he died. And I wondered all my life why my mother was depressed. What's going on? Why couldn't she fully love me? What's going on? When I put all the pieces together of that situation happening in 1941 and what was happening in the world, that was just before Pearl Harbor, that was just before the United States getting involved. And then all of my mother's brothers went off to war. Everything happened to leave her mother alone. It was incredible. The healing, I'm getting goosebumps right now. The healing that occurred when I understood, oh my gosh, how huge that is, what she went through. And my father was a pilot also. He was married to my mother, and everybody was off to war and went through that. And they went through the Depression. They went through all that. And so understanding it and healing was just like you, Sarah Jane, understanding their journey. And that helped me tremendously. The second one was recently last year with my ex-husband's deciding to end his life in almost exactly the same way as my grandfather. And this time I was more involved because of my son, who was born through our marriage. And so that was a lot of healing too, looking in myself. Why is this affecting me? What is this loss? And grief and loss are like three-headed snakes. One happens and another one pops up and it vibrates to another one, and you experience all of it and you come to terms with what you're going through. And just saying, thank you, grief. Thank you, let me learn. Thank you. And going into that and just going through that. Yeah, so go ahead, Elizabeth. Yours is different than mine.
That was beautiful, Jean. Beautifully said. What comes up for me is, in my experience with the suicide in my family, is it taught me that there's always another option. Because each of those people, whatever happened, they just saw that as the only option. And that, anyway, that was a lesson that I learned. And it's served me really well. And interestingly enough, when I was trained to be a science researcher, the rule was you don't stop until you found at least 3 alternatives. So it kind of went, and that kind of became a little bit of a mantra in my life. But then these other things happened kind of concurrent with that training. And I was like, yeah, this thing about another option, especially the third option, is a really important thing. Also, this thing about difficulty in relationships, we can get really independent around, when we have a lot of letdown from other people. That's one of the things we clear for right off the top, and ancestral clearing right off the top is letdown in people's lives. Right? It's boom, we bring that in. Is in the whole lineage, right? Imagine all the letdown. But the thing is that if we don't trust people, then when we really need help, we can't ask for help. So it's really important to do whatever. For me, it was really important for me because I'm super independent. You can imagine kind of having a trauma and not having anybody to help. I had to do that myself with Source. But for me to ask for help from other people was a thing that I had to learn to be comfortable with, and not just in the mind, but in the body. I had to learn to embody that, right? And how did I do that? I did it by doing everything I could to bring balance into my life, whatever that looked like. So that's kind of what I have to say. I mean, that's kind of, I'm dancing around it, but that's pretty much it.
It is about balance, isn't it? It is about, I became thoroughly independent. Thoroughly independent. But I also do remember it was just over a 3-day period. I dipped so low. And I remember that word suicide coming into my head. But seriously, my immediate reaction to that was, no, not happening. And I had that strength to pull myself out. I was in that process of starting my journey of healing. These things happen in people's lives. I was lucky enough to have that strength to be able to say, oh, no, we're not going there, and pull myself out of it. But I mean, if that word had potentially come up when I'd had the close to nervous breakdown, which had happened several years before, when I suddenly felt the banks were about to burst, and I had to get out of the shop. Oh, gratefully, I was area manager, so I was able to leave the shop. It didn't matter. But I had to get out, and I had to get home. And those tears just flooded. But gratefully, that wasn't a thought at that point in time, because I don't know how I'd have coped with that. But gratefully, I did have the support. I was able to phone my mother, and it was just like, right. And they came and got me, almost type thing. But we have the downs, and it's accepting it is part of life. And you've talk about suicide. I had a friend that committed suicide. He jumped in front of a train. And it was just like, there were over 200 people at his funeral. It was standing room only. And he had nobody he felt he could turn to. But I love the way Neil Donald Walsh refers to the day we pass. He refers to it as being our continuation day. So whether it's a day we choose or it's the day that eventually our life comes to an end, I love that term. It's our continuation day. And with the loss of my father, I think I knew the term by then. I didn't know it for my grandparents. It has helped me so much. my sense is that there are some who have chosen that is their exit for this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
As hard as it is on those around them. And I know, and I appreciate that's a difficult one for people to potentially get their heads around.
Well, I just want to say, we're bringing up a topic that's needs to be talked about with tender care. And I want to make sure that we do that responsibly, and I care about that deeply. I host a platform on suicide prevention and awareness. And so I'm hoping that after we shut off, I can help you get the links to immediate support in the chat or in the YouTube where you place this, if there's somebody out there that's experiencing suicidal ideation. Because as Elizabeth said, getting over that independence, and a lot of times when we're wounded, we go into isolation and we become very good at protecting ourselves and being isolated and finding a way to navigate through life in a little cocoon or protective shell. And Julie and I experience daily chronic pain, so does Elizabeth. And part of my chronic pain journey is suicidal ideation. I have it every day. But I have learned to live with it. It's more like, oh, I'm in so much pain, I want to cut off my head, kind of a thing. I'm not going to end my life. I've found a way to experience joy, chronic joy, and chronic pain. But I do want you to know that you're not alone. If you're feeling that, not to feel ashamed of that. There were times when we used to say someone committed suicide, it's a crime. We don't say that anymore. They actually used to be a crime. We don't say that. It's ending your life in that way. And we understand those feelings, and we create a safe space. And here's a safe space, and we'll put some things for you for that. But just the biggest thing, as Elizabeth said, is to reach out. Pick up that 500-pound phone, call somebody, reach out, and know that there's a space. So I just want to get that out there.
Oh, absolutely. It really is. It was just like when he did what he did, it was, none of us could believe it.
Yeah.
None of us could believe it. And it was just one of those things. And he left behind 2 adult children, and his daughter was pregnant with his grandchild. But I don't think he actually knew that. So, yeah. So, it's hard on the close families, but it was very difficult for us as a group of friends that he'd done what he'd done.
The families that are left behind, that they need care and love and hugs, as Julie say. Everybody hugs, and the families that are left behind. But there's just so much out there for that to help us through that.
Yes. And if you've got Jean, you can email me any links that you want to. I'll make sure they're under the video on YouTube. So if you're watching this via YouTube, please, there will be links underneath for each and every one of us, but also some from Jean, sort of extra as well.
International help and crisis help. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. We're not far off the end of the program. So what I'd actually like each of you to do is anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to share. I'm going to come to you last, Jean. Actually, I'm going to come to Julie first.
Going with the same conversation that we just had, if you or a loved one are going through depression or mental health, or if you have someone who's isolating themselves from their community, their family, their relationships, like Elizabeth said, having those 3 outlets, having those 3 resources or pathways or solutions, whether that is you reach out to them, you give them a hug. I know in my chapter, my son allowed me to share part of his journey through suicide. And in deep depression. He had all the resources he needed, and he said, Mom, you can't love me enough. It has nothing to do with how much you love me. But it was those moments when there were no words, there was a hug, and you could hold them in that embrace to carry the load of what they're carrying. And I think that we all can do that. And it's showing them, and gratitude elevates truth. So finding ways to show them, give them gratitude for them being here today, in the special ways of connection that you can find. It's sitting with them, listening to them, asking questions, and leave it open-ended, not just it's how was your day, or what was your favorite part of your day today. It's bringing them back here into this moment to be here present now, because they spend so much time in the darkness of their own mind. And I think that helping them find those solutions or pathways out of it is a really great place that we could spend our time so for those who are dealing with it now, before that loved one makes that choice, just know that there are ways that you can bring your presence into to create a connection with them, even if it's just a hug. And I think that this book helps us to give us those resources and different avenues and different ways to look at that. But that was just sitting in my heart, that those that are still here dealing with it, there is a way for us to be a part of their process here in the now.
Elizabeth.
That was beautiful, Julie. I'd like to piggyback on that and say, just like we can't digest and run at the same time, we're just not set up for that. We can't sleep and run at the same time. We can't defend and connect at the same time. So if I'm dealing with somebody and they've got their defenses up, how am I going to connect? Because they're doing this. The thing that people want the most is to be acknowledged. So the question would be, maybe, what would you like to share with me? And then listen and acknowledge. You know what? I don't have to agree with them, but just acknowledging that they have a voice and that it's being heard, you're going to watch them go from this to this, and now you're connecting, and now you can co-regulate, and now you've just changed the state of their nervous system. Right? And now they might be actually open to getting a hug. Right? So I would just like to add that and layer that into this whole conversation. And thank you for the opportunity for letting me do that.
100%. It's that feeling listened to, seen, and heard at every level. And if we're not feeling that, that is when we are feeling at our absolute lowest. I became a people pleaser just to try and feel that, but being able to let go of that made the difference. And as we said very much at the beginning, loving ourselves. We're not taught to love ourselves. Nobody teaches us that it's okay to love ourselves. How many of us, if asked where we were on the list of priority in our own life, how many of us, we wouldn't even be on it until we learn that we are the number one priority. When we love ourselves, care about ourselves, we can bring all of that to other people. It's not selfish. Our care for ourselves enables us to bring that care to others. And I have helped somebody not to commit suicide. So, and Jean, Your final thoughts, please.
Well, I just think it's delightful the way that we're ending, starting with the physical hug, and then Elizabeth with the bridging with communication and saying, tell me more, just opening that door. And, it's like we're going backwards from the physical connection and then going backwards to start with that, opening that door. And I'm going to go backwards too. With what you just said, Sarah Jane, we start with ourselves. And so before you do what Elizabeth said or what Julie said, I would suggest, to, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling blocked, if you're feeling grief or pain or anger towards somebody else and you want to do what Julie's saying with the hug, I would say start with yourself. And when I started out with my example of the dancing or this or that, reset. Do a refresh and a reset. And so right now we could do that. We can just take a deep breath. Yeah, just take that reset breath. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to count, I'm not going to do anything, but just taking that moment and find your own way of doing what brings you joy. And maybe it's walking in nature. Maybe it's sitting down and listening to music or moving, whatever it is, or playing the piano or arts, or maybe it's sports, maybe it's animals, petting your dog, whatever it is, or working in the garden. But a reset and self-love, and it just means so much to stop, breathe. And when I just breathe like 4 or 5 times, I feel so much better. And Elizabeth knows that. She's a master teacher of breath work and healing. But yeah, so that's what I'll leave you with. And just know that you're not alone and your wellness matters. We care.
I'm going to say bless you to each and every one of you, and to Sandy and to Sue, who's been here with us. Thank you for joining us. I have put into the chat Jean's, Elizabeth's and Julie's website addresses. I've also put the one you said, Jean, your website with Brave Families. So if folks are interested in taking a look at the Brave Families aspect of your website, they can. If you're watching on YouTube, they will be underneath the video. As I said, if you've got any others you want to send me, Jean, please do. I will make sure they go under the video as soon as possible. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for the participation in this book, for all that you have shared in the program today. Thank you so very much. Just very briefly before we finish, next week, we have a today's conversation for you. Burnout seen through an IFS lens. So I hope you'll think about joining us for that. In the meantime, take care, be safe, stay well. Namaste, sweet souls. Bye.